How's it going, PD team? Today is our 1-year anniversary of this channel, and I couldn't be happier with the results. We've smashed our expectations and goals with undeniable help from our subscriber team and comment gang. In celebration, I thought I'd make a tutorial on creating a melting birthday candle rig in Cinema 4D with some wonderful Redshift tricks, the usual. While my example is not photorealistic, we'll be producing a platform for you to do so. The tricky technical stuff will be covered in this video, rest assured. With that being said, let's dive in. Those with a keen eye, you've probably noticed that the flame does not use the Pyro module. I find that most of the time I fake my dynamics in my motion graphics projects or product renders rather than run simulations, giving us more control and making art directing much easier. VFX is a different story. These are some of the things you'll need to consider in the MoGraph field: time management and control over your scenes. This project is broken up into 5 main parts: the wax stick model and its dynamics, the wick modeling and how it burns, the flame modeling and its motion physics, to fake dynamics, texturing tricks, and lastly, we'll be rigging this up to where we can send this project to another animator or other team member and they won't destroy the file. So we have things like the controller so they know which one to animate. We have some espresso that basically makes the wick burn depending on the position of our controller, and everything seems to follow. So if you notice, the wax burns at different rates on the edges. So I'll show you how to do that so we get some inconsistencies. We've got a little bit of wiggle to the flame itself, and you notice the wick transitions into a burnt ember like shape and kind of expands and curls dependent on this controller's position. So those are some of the things we'll be discussing. So you can see when it plays, it's keyframed the position of the controller and everything follows. But if I stop it and I take my flame group here and I move it down, you can see it's all grouped up nicely and everything works. You also notice there's a limit, so I can't extend this above and I can't bring this below a certain level. Okay, let's build this thing out. Okay, so here we are in a blank scene. We're gonna start off with modeling the wax shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a cylinder. I'll leave it default height, but I'll change this to 10 on the radius so we get a stick, and you can come up with your own size. I'm just going to use defaults. Turn on my edges, so NB. Go to my profile view here, and I'm going to make a rectangle, set it to 4 and 4, zoom in here, and I'm going to hit C to convert, go to my point mode and right click, and we're going to do a create point, add a point. Then I'm going to turn on snapping, grid plane snap, hit E to move, and I'm going to snap this like this so we get a point. I'll select the other points and just drag this in to here, like so. And this is going to be for our coil. So we'll go ahead and add a helix, and we know the radius is going to be 10 because that's the size of the wax. And then we'll change the direction so it's facing vertically. Now I want the wax base to be on the ground. So I'll go ahead and put this at 100 because the height is 200, puts it right on the floor. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the coil amount to 1080. And then we're going to sweep this. So we'll add a sweep, add our profile in first, and then add the path in second. And you can see if we zoom in here, the coil is banking. So we'll go to the sweep and we'll turn off banking. And we have too many segments. So I'm going to go to the helix and just bring this down till we get something like 25 looks good. And there's our coil. So I'm going to go to the helix here, go to the rectangle. Let me rename it to profile. I'm going to scale it up. Actually, before I scale it, I'm going to add a cloner. So I'll call this coil. Hold down Alt. It groups it for us. Go here to radial, bring this size to 0. And then I'm going to set the coil count to 4. And then what we can do is we can add this to a merge, but before I merge these two together, I like having the cap pointy. So what I'll do is I'm going to go here to my segments here and just bring this up so when we smooth this, it looks good. Let's go to 32. And then I'm going to hit C to convert, go to my face selection, hit 9 to make a selection here and paint the top. And I'm going to extrude it up and scale. So hit T and we'll leave the flat part on the top. Next, what we want to do is we want to adjust the coil and click the details and just add a point. So you hold Control or Command, click, and we'll scale this up so it fades out just like that. Call this coils. So we want to merge these two together. So I'll go ahead and add a volume builder and a volume mesher, add both these elements inside, and we'll bring our volume builder down to 1. And there's the ridges. And then you can come up with your own ridge line that you want. Let me NA this. And I want these rails to be larger. So I can go to the profile here, hit T to transform with my model mode, hold shift to scale them. So that looks about right. And you can do flat ones. You can come up with your own look. This is just a generic shape. So next what we'll do is we'll smooth it out. But before I switch it, I'm going to change the type because of the way we're going to chisel this. I'm going to change this from sign distance field to fog, and then smooth it. And I'm going to bring this down to right where it starts smoothing out, something like 50. Actually, we'll leave it at 100 and just turn down those voxel size to 1. There, that looks pretty good for now. We'll go ahead and adjust these parameters in a little bit. When you smooth it, you might get a smaller ridge, so you can always just go in and rescale it. So next what I want to do is I want to group this together. So I'll Alt G, call it wax. And what we want to do is is we want a controller. Basically, we want a controller that's going to slide down and adjust the melting position. So I'll add a null, call it flame, I'll move it up. And for the controller, I like putting it to circle and have it on the Y. We'll make it bigger. We'll give it a color of red. And this controller will just move up and down to trim the wax melt. So what we'll do is we're going to go here to the volume builder and add into it a group. So I'll go here to field group, hold shift, make sure that group is inside like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a linear field, set it to Y, and we'll set the scale something like 20. And we'll set this to subtract. Now, what it's doing is it's looking in this group for the linear field, but it's set to box. So you can see it's only affecting in this box shape. So we're going to do objects below, and there you go. So now we can trim this, and I'm going to change the direction to Y. So now you can see it pulls down. Next, what we want to do is we want to have transition here be slightly altered. So we're going to add a noise to this. So in the field group, we'll go ahead and add a shader effector. So hold shift. And we want this to be set to overlay because we want to affect the transition. So what happens is this is black, this is white. And when you set it to overlay, the areas in the middle, which is the gray values, will be affected. So I'll set the noise. And this size is something that you're going to want to pick. We've got the shader field that's affecting the linear field. So I'm going to take the linear field and place it inside the flame here and zero out the position so that when we move this here, it subtracts. Next, what I want to do is I want to fix the blend mode here. So the order of operation is important. We're going to change this to fog smooth and put it above. Now we'll try it out. There we go. So you can see the noise is changing how that transition works. You can see it's cut away. So let's adjust our noise here. I'm going to set it to an even 200 on the scale. So you can see it warps the edge, and your scene might be different, but that's something you can adjust. So let's rename our linear field to wax mask. Okay, so far it looks good. Let's go ahead and build the next element, which is going to be the wick. So I'm going to go here to add another helix, change the direction, set this to something small like 2 and 2 on the thickness. So you can see it has like a small spin to it. And we need a end side for the profile. We'll set this to 1 for now, and we'll add both of these into a sweep object. So I'm going to hold all 3 modifiers and click, adds it to a group, call this wick. And we can turn off our wax temporarily. And then we can add this as well into a cloner group. So we're going to hold alt, set it to radial, bring this to 0. And we want just 3 wicks for this. Now let's turn on the wax here, and we want these wicks to be slightly taller. So I'm going to just click a couple times. So we'll go to 220. That looks about right. You can go longer if you want. And then what we want to do is we want to go to the helix and increase the twist so it feels right. Let's do 2000. 2500. There we go. And then I can change the width to be 1. So it's touching. And then you get some weird Phong breaks. So we can just go to the profile here and just increase it until it smooths. So I'll go to 8. And there we go. So the wick's going to animate using the end growth like that. So we don't need to see this field. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off in the viewport. So there's our wick. So I'm going to group it in a null. So Alt G, call it wick. And what we want to do is we want to distort where it burns. So with the wick selected, I'm going to go here to deformers and do displacer. So I'm going to hold shift. It adds it to the group. I'm going to call this one small. We'll go ahead and add a shader, go to noise, and we're going to bring this way down, something like 10. And then obviously our distortion is way too high. So we'll try 2 and see what that looks like. There we go. And I'm going to change the noise type to blister turbulence so we get a little bit more detail. And then what we want to do is we want a field to mask this. So I'm going to go to the displacer small, go to field, pick linear field, change the direction, change the height to something really small like 2, and then bring the position up. So I'll go to right in the middle here, and then I'm going to add this into the flame controller, and I'll call this distort. So now we can try this out. And there we go. So there's the distortion. Next, what we want to do is we want the wick to kind of displace and distort and kind of change directions once it gets burned. And what's cool is this is all modular, so we can move this up and down to get the right results. So I'm going to go ahead and into this wick here, we're going to go ahead and add another displacer. So hold shift, and I'll call this large, add shading. So I'll click the down arrow, click noise, and we're going to change the normal to planar. You can see it distorts. We'll go ahead and add a field, same thing, linear field, rename it, call it wick bend. Go to the front view here. And we want this one to be small as well. So I'll say 2. Let's make it a little taller so the transition is softer. There we go. And then we'll just add this into our flame group. And so now you can see when I move the flame, the tip bends. So I'll move it here, and then we can adjust how much distortion we get. So the default is way too high. That looks about right. Next, what we want to do is we want to trim this and shorten it up and follow along this here. So what we'll do is we'll make a null. Next, Espresso null. So I'm going to take and add a null here, call it Espresso, right click on it, programming tags, Espresso. And I like changing the color to be white and then change the load the preset. We'll pick this guy right here, make it white, and I'll put the display to none. So what we want to do is we want to control the Wick's cutoff. So we'll open this up and we want to affect the end growth. So to do that, we're going to drag our Wick in here and we'll grab the end growth in, and we want the Wick's position to change. So we'll drag in our flame. It's going to be based off of the flame, and we're going to pick the Y direction. So the Y direction is going to control the end growth, and these two will not work if you connect them direct. This end growth is percentages and the Y position is distance. So we'll right click here, go to calculate and do range mapper. So we need to figure out how much this is going to move. So what we'll do is we'll drag the flame here. Let's turn off all these displacers and fall off fields. So our flame is going to start right here at 213 and go to, let's pick, we'll do like 40, 50. So we'll go to the Espresso editor and we'll plug in input lower is going to be 50 and the output is going to be 216. Let's just verify real quick. We'll do 210. So these are the min and max values. So we'll plug in our Y, and our range mapper is going to be not user defined. The output's going to be %. And we'll leave this default and we'll adjust it in a second. So I'll plug this in, go to our editor and drag this down to when it hits 50, type in 50 here. And then what we'll do is we'll go to our Espresso, select the range mapper. I'm having to do this with one screen, so it's a little tricky. And then I'm just going to drag this to where I want the Wick to be, something like 36. So your value might be different, but there you go. So now you can see when I drag the flame. Now I don't want the user to extend this up more than it's meant to go. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on the flame, right click on it, go to rigging tags and do protection. I made a shortcut up at the top. And so now it's locked. So I'm going to say limit and I'll go to the Y and I'll say the minimum is 50 and this is 210. So it locks and then we have to set this to 50. So you can see it stops and goes up to the top. Now I want the Wick to be slightly taller. So I'm going to go to the Wick here, go to the object tab and just click it up a couple times so it's a little taller. There we go. And I can then adjust the flame Wick distort, bring it down a little bit. You can make your adjustments as you go. There we go. So our controller's moving along nicely. So we can try it out. Beautiful. Let me get rid of these safe guides. Smooth. Okay, next we're going to build out the flame itself. So to do this, we're going to start off with a sphere, and I'm not worried about the size right now. I'm going to turn off the Wick and the wax so we don't see it. Turn on my edge mode, so NB. Go to the front view, hit O to select it, and we're going to smooth this, so I'm going to leave it at its default divisions. And to do this, to make a flame, what we're going to do is we're going to convert this, so I'm going to hit C, go to point mode. If you right click, you have one called brush. I'm going to scale it up pretty far, so I'm middle clicking and dragging to the right. Select all, Command A, and I'm going to just click and drag upwards. And then we'll go to the other view, the side view, and we'll do the same thing here. Make it bigger and push it in a little bit. And you can spend more time doing this. I'm not doing a very good job. Teardrop shape. Let's go ahead and rename this to flame and then smooth it. So we'll go here, add subdivide, so alt click. And you can make yours pointier. Let's fix this. Middle click. And this is going to get distorted, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And that looks pretty good. Now what we can do is we can do the bottom. So I like bringing this down just a teeny bit. Like that. Do it in this direction too. Push it in a little bit. There we go. There's the flame. Call this flame smooth. Then we'll add it into our group. So I'm going to take the smoother and zero out the position, turn on my Wick and my candle, and let's get the correct size. So it's massive right now. So I'll go to the scale tool, hit T for transform. Place it where I want it. See the ratio and A. So we can scale this down a little bit more, possibly even scale it vertically. So it's a little taller. There we go. Okay. So there's the flame. Now, what we're going to be doing is we want to animate this scaling and stuff, but we want to scale it from the bottom. So I'm going to just take my anchor point tool, so I can hit L or just click this button here. Go to the move tool, so I'll hit E, drag this down. And I'm going to do the same for the flame itself. Just drag it down to its base, like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to scale this like this. So let's try it out. So we can go down to the bottom here and we can adjust the mask for the wax. Bring it down just a little bit more. And you kind of have to just adjust stuff as you see something wrong with it. There you go. So make sure you save often. Next, what we want to do is let's go ahead and animate the shape of this. So to do that, I'm going to take the flame here and just nest it. So I'm going to Alt G and I'll rename this flame. And I actually want to change the order of this. So I'm going to take the smoother and add the null inside the smoother and add the flame inside the null. So we have a group for the flame and then it gets smoothed out. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to add a displacer to this. So I'm going to go here to displacer, hold shift, adds it in the group, call this flame distort, go to shading, add noise. And what we want to do is we want to move this vertically. So I'll go one click and one click on the speed. So if I play it, it's moving up like that. And we want our values to be super minimal. So we'll try 1 for now. And we don't want it affecting the base. We want it just affecting the top. So what I'll do is I'm going to add a field. -Y, drag it up. So we're affecting just the tip. Just the tip, just like that. And there we go. Next, what I want to do is I want this thing to scale and kind of flicker. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a fall off fields. So to do that, my original base mesh. And what we want to do is we want to affect the height like this, but we don't want the volume to change. So what we're going to do is when we scale it vertically like that, we want this to squish in and get thinner. So I'll first add the Y, right click and say field driver, add. And then what we'll do is in the parameters, we're going to set this to 1.1. So it scales just 10%. And our field is going to be a random field. And you can use a shader field if you want to animate. I'm just going to use the random field. We'll add it into our group here, hit play. I'm going to disable the flame distort so we can see it without it. And then with our field, we're going to change the speed. And then we can go to our formula field and let's bring down the parameters to like 0.9. We can bring this up, speed, so you can see it's scaling. And I don't like how much this is moving, so I'm going to set this back to 1. We want it subtle. Next, what we'll do is we want to change the volume. So we're going to change it on the X and the Z. So I'm going to Alt click, Control click. So I'm selecting the X and the Z, right click, field driver, add, save. And with this, we want, when this gets bigger, we want this to get smaller. So I'm going to go to 0.8. Let's do 0.9. So there you go. So you can see it's normal size. And then when it scales up, these sides squish in. So we're not losing volume. And then if you want it to flicker quicker, you can just change this animation speed. You can also change the scale. So there's that. We can turn back our displacement and there you go. So we have some nice little movement in here. Now, if you wanted to, you could add a rig of bones and bend this or use a bend deformer if you want to animate a bend deformer animating side to side. I'm going to leave it just like this where there's just minimal movement. So we can take our former here and turn it off, turn this off. So now that we're done with the flame, the wick and the wax and the controller, let's tidy this up. So I'm going to go in here, add a group and I'm going to call this candle and add all my elements inside. So we have the group for candle, the espresso, the flame, the wick, and the wax. And the flame is what's our controller for movement. So let's go ahead and build some textures. Whoa, hold on a second. So you made it this far. Clearly, you're enjoying the content. Would you consider clicking the thanks button on this video to help grow the channel's community so I can make more great content just for you? Any amount is greatly appreciated. If money is tight right now, then do me a favor and just smash that like button immediately. Now to the video. Okay, we're on the next phase of our project here. We've got the espresso set up. We got our flame, our wick, and our wax. And when we move the controller, everything works. So let's go ahead and get into lighting and texturing. So I'm going to start off with adding a dome light, call this HDRI, and I'm going to go to my browser, go to HDRs, and you can pick your own. I'm going to just go down to the bottom here and pick this indoor looking one. That's a cathedral. Let's do this one. Okay. And then I'm going to go here to -1 on the exposure, maybe a little less. Let's go -2. And you can't really see it. Let me rotate this here, but this green screen, I'm going to change it to be a warmer color and desaturate a little bit like that. And then turn the IPR on. First, let me turn off the visibility. So I'm going to go to, in the new Cinema 4D, the latest version, they moved the visibility of the background plate, you have to go to the details section and click camera and bring that all the way down. And what I want to do is I want to get a nice rim light, so a nice backlight. So I'll load up the IPR, and I'm going to take the rotation here, so we get something like this. And you can see now we have nice warm lighting on one side and a cool light on the other side. So I'll turn off the IPR. I find when I have the IPR loaded and I disable things like the shelf, it can crash. Or if I go into quadrant view to make adjustments, we run into a crash. I'm going to take and add another dome light just to give us a background. So I'll call this background, and I have a specific value I'm going to use. I'm going to put it to 220, 50, and 25. So I've got 220, 50, and 25. And then what you do is you go to the details tab, and I don't want this visible in any of the passes except for the camera because it's just going to be a background. I don't want it contributing to the light of the scene. So I'm going to bring all these down. So we're only seeing this as a background element. So I'll test it out, load up the IPR, and there we go. So we have a dark blue background. I'll double click here to the layers palette, add both of these elements into the new layer I created, drag it in and turn it off in the object manager. Call this lights, make it yellow. And there's our lighting setup. So you can see there they are. Let me pull them down to the bottom, turn them off. Okay. So now that we've got our lighting set up, what I want to do is I want to go to this wick and actually make the visibility of it X-ray so I can see through it. Because what we're going to do next is we're going to add a light source for the candle. So I'll go here and I'm just going to use a point light, bring it up, and I want to bring it right above the wick. I don't want it to intersect because it won't work. And then what we'll do is we'll put the light inside the group for the flame so it moves with it. Call it flame light, and I'll make it slightly warm, and I'll bring the intensity up to 20,000 like so. So we can test this out, see it goes up and down with the light, the wick, and let's see what we get with the render. And you shouldn't see anything because what happens is this smooth flame is blocking. So next what we want to do is in the flame light, we'll go to project, and we want to exclude the wick and the flame itself. Sometimes you have to hit refresh. Okay, so we drag the flame light into the flame controller so it moves with it. You can test it out. You see how that works. Next, what we'll do is we're going to go and add our textures. So I'm going to open up the wax, the wick's open, and the flame is open. So double click, call this wax, drag the wax onto the volume mesher. We'll set the color to like 90% white. We'll set this to 0.3 on the shininess so it is kind of rough. And then what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a little bit of coat, like 0.2%. And then the roughness, I'll set to 0.05, so it's not super sharp. And I'm going to bring down the IPR to 1.4. And the last thing we want to do is we want to add some subsurface. So I'm going to just click this here, and I'm just going to go halfway, so we're not exposing too much of the subsurface. And in our color, I'm just going to warm it up and give it just a little bit of a yellow milk color, maybe a little bit more saturated. So there's the wax. We can adjust those in a sec. Next, I'm going to do the wick. Now, for your project, I would suggest actually making it look more rope-like, where you have individual strands. I'm not going to go through that right now, but that's what I would suggest is loading up a bump where you have the individual strands showing. So I'm going to just roughen this up, set this to pure white, and then pull it down just 1 or 2 clicks. And then I'm going to go to the subsurface and add just a teeny bit, like 0.2. So wick is good, wax is good. And then here's where we get into the fun stuff. So the next material we're going to create finally is the flame material. So instead of double clicking, I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to load up an incandescent, call this flame, add it onto our smooth object, double click so it loads it up. I'm going to delete these extra inputs. We don't need to see them. And what we're going to do is we're going to load up into the color channel. So I'm going to control click or command click the dot, and we're going to bring in a layer, color layer, plug it in. And we're not going to mess with the base layer because we're going to use alpha in these and we want a base of black. I'm going to get rid of the preview so it loads quicker. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start off with doing a gradient. So I'm going to double click, do ramp, load up into the color. Okay, now that we have the base ramp set, we'll drag it up here because we're going to have a bunch of these. Call this base. And we're going to bring the ramp blackness value up kind of far. And we'll set our first color to like a desaturated white. Add another color where we introduce a little bit more warmth like that. There we go. And we'll adjust these values in a sec. So that's our base channel. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like. So make sure you save before you load up the IPR. And that's what we've got. So nice. What I want to do is I want to soften the edge here. So to soften that, we're going to use a Fresnel. So I'll turn off the IPR. So I'll bring up a Fresnel, drag it into the mask. Call it mask. Now, when I make materials, I like giving these masks the color green so that it's very easy and understand that it's a mask. Quick glance, something like that. So what we want to do is we want to uncheck this index of refraction, and then we'll adjust this fall off curve value. So let's see what we got so far. So you can see that it's working just on the edges, and that's not what we want. So what I like to do is I like to remap these so I have more control. So what you can do is you can put another ramp in between. So I'm going to click and drag it onto the line, rename this to remap. And now what we can do is we can invert these values. And you can see what it's doing. It's softening the edge here. So what I can do is I can change and solo this mask and see that we have a tight edge. So what I can do is I can bring this value of this mask down to 3, and we're going to get a bigger edge like that. So now when I turn this off, you can see it cuts into it might be kind of hard to see, but it's cutting into the shape and it's softening this. So if I want to soften this, I can just bring this in like so. Let me refresh and I'll go more extreme so it's up more obvious on the screen. See how it's cutting in? And that's what we want. I'm going to leave it there. So next what I'm going to do is on the material of the incandescent, I'm going to select it and I'm going to uncheck double-sided and I'm going to say additive blend. So now you can see through the material and you can see we get some natural darkening on the wick. So we actually don't need to adjust that. So there's the flame and then we want a bluer color at the bottom. And then I'm going to show you how to get a blue edge on this right here and make the center hollow with a blue bottom. So to do this, I'm going to undock my node editor so I can see what's going on. And I'm going to parent it to the bottom window. It's cleaning up our nodes here. So to make the ramp, I'm just going to steal this one here for the blue. Scroll down, I'm going to invert the values. So invert gradient and get rid of this and make this blue. And I'm going to make it almost purpley, like so. Plug it in. We need to set our blend mode, our second layer. So we'll enable it and set this to screen and zoom into the flame here. Command S. So your gradient should look something like this. And obviously the way this is showing up way too bright. So I'm going to just go here to the mask and just bring it down. So it's subtle. I'll set it to 0.25. And then now we want a edge along here where it kind of highlights in this bluish color. So to do that, we're going to mimic this setup here. So I'm going to steal this remap. I'm going to bring in the layer 3, set it to screen, and remap this to a blue. Like so, and drag it into the color channel. You invert these values so we get it on the edge here, and then you can do this to taste. So how much of this you want. So I'll bring this value down to 2 so we get more of it. So something subtle like this. Now we want this to mask from the bottom and just do this center part. So I'll bring in the mask. So I'm going to alt click the mask on layer 3, bring up a ramp. Drag it in. Bring this in here. Copy the black point. And you can adjust this to your liking, how far up you want that blue. But you can see it looks really nice because the blue is kind of on the outside and the yellow is on the inside. Then we can also bring down the amount. So let's try 0.2. Here we go. And there's the flame. So we can zoom out and we get some nice subsurface happening. Now the flame is not doing what we want. So I'm going to turn it off, IPR, save. And I'm going to go to my flame light, bring up my inspector here, go to the project tab, and I'm going to disable flame light. And just for good measure, I'll bring in the geometry as well. And then I'm also going to turn off the wick like that. So now you can see the flame is lighting up, the flame light is lighting up the wax and not affecting the wick. But it also, because this light is not able to go through the flame geometry, it actually just turns the material of the wick black, which is perfect. So we don't actually need to do much with that. But I do want some embers on that wick. So what we'll do is we'll come in here to our wick and I'm going to first add a noise, max on noise. We're going to go to our scroll down. We're going to go to the emission, set this to 2, bring in the emission color. So command click or control click and drag this in. We're going to set this to blistered turbulence and make our red color. So I can go something like bright red. And then I want to scroll down to the bottom here. And I want this noise to be small. So I'm going to scroll down, go to the output and the input and bring this down to like something like 5. And then change the clipping. So we'll adjust the low clip to add more contrast in the dark. So you get something like that. And we can adjust that in a second. Now you're going to see a problem with this once I hit the IPR is that the ember is filling the whole wick. And I'm going to leave it like that until I get the ember the right amount. So you can see here, we can get the ember to be just a couple flakes. And we can go to our material here and bring this up to, let's try 3. And we need to mask this. So to get this to mask properly, what we're going to do is we're going to use a vertex map. So to get this wick to mask, what we do is we're going to click on the wick here and I'm going to add it to a connect object. So I'm going to go here and do connect, alt click, drag the wick material onto the connect object, right click on the wick connect object, go to other tags and vertex map. And then what we're going to do is we're going to simply just add the wick distort into the field. And now you can see the field has got a mask and we can pull this mask data that's on the wick into our material. So to do that, we're going to type in vertex attribute and we're going to take our vertex map and drag it into the field here of our vertex attribute. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click and type in layer, color layer. We're not going to mess with the base because we're going to reveal alpha. We don't need layer 2 mask color either. And we're going to drag in our color into our color channel and our mask into our mask. We can delete scalar data and then drag this in. Click away, and then we can load up the IPR and see if it's working. And there you go. So now you can see we've got the ember working. And we need to update the flame here, Wick, to be the connect object, like so. Connect Wick. And then you can adjust this Wick noise. We can try larger values. There we go. 10 is a sweet spot for mine. We want chunks. And then what we can do is we can come into the output module and then just adjust how much of that ember you want. I like that. I'll set this to 6.5. There we go. Now I'm not liking the distance on the subsurface. So to fix that, we'll go to our wax and go to the radius and crank this up. Bring it to like something like 10, which is the width of the wax itself. And there you go. So let's turn this IPR off. Minimize our node editor, fire up the IPR, and there you go. There's all the base materials that you need. So we got the wax looking good, we've got the wick looking decent, got the embers looking good, and the flame. Now we can try out our controller, so we can bring it down. You see it melts, and the embers follow. Looks great. And this needs refinement, but this is a good jumping off point for you to take it further. And these values, you're gonna have to adjust and do a preview render to get the right wiggle and all that, but this is essentially it. That's it for this tutorial. I hope you learned some new tricks, and happy birthday to Polygon Division. Thanks so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more content. Thanks for your support.